Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope you're going to enjoy this presentation of Parsa. Parsa is a new member of the prefix team. He's currently studying. He'll probably do his own intro in the presentation, so we'll not hijack that from him. He's been working on an awesome project that is very interesting to prefix and is currently in the prefix organization. But to not spoil anything, I want to give the word to Parsa.
Thank you very much, Ruben. Yeah, I just joined Prefix, and I will be a part of the team for the next 4 months until the end of April. And then before January, I had the chance to work on Shell, which is, well, as you may know, it's a cross-platform, extremely fast, Bash compatible Shell. Okay, so in Without further ado, I think we can just start. Let me share my screen. You should have my screen right now.
Yes.
Um, Perfect. Okay. So just a little bit more about me. I'm currently studying CS Computer Science and CO here at University of Waterloo, which would be combinatorial optimization. And then I'm currently, well, a second year. I finished my second year, and then um, I will be, as I mentioned, at prefix from January to April. And that's about it. Uh, as I said, we can just simply move on to Shell itself. And then I think, Julian, do you want to start off with some like logic behind why Shell is useful to prefix? And then I can just go continue with the demo.
Absolutely. So our main product, Pixie, at the moment already has cross-platform shell, which we took from Dino Task Shell, which we took from Dino JavaScript runtime. But it also has certain limitations. It's a very simplistic way of implementing a shell. And it also doesn't include GNU utils, doesn't include any of the common tools. So for example, if you add a Pixie task, which would depend on ls, it wouldn't work anymore in Windows. Also, we face a related problem or related situation with threadle build, where people would like to write shell scripts cross-platform. So sometimes we have very simple situations which could easily work on Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. But the reason why you write it twice is because you have to use Bash on Linux and Mac OS. You have to use a shell, POSIX shell on those two. And on Windows, you're then reliant on the Windows batch, on Windows CMD. So having something that's cross-platform that works reasonably well, that behaves as expected, if you use the POSIX shell, would be really useful for us, but it would also be useful for different Rust-based projects, like for example, Just. That's why we're excited about it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Julian. So just continue off with the demo. So essentially, let me just open up. Okay, so you should have my terminal right now. We just released Shell on CondaForge. Like I think a couple hours ago, you should be able to install it through CondaForge as well. And then it's essentially like a program you can run, which would be like if I just run shell, I have shell already installed. So if I just run shell, I have an interactive mode of bash here that would work. Let's say if I can go back and forth. So we have a set of commands already implemented, and then obviously we're planning on adding more. And essentially that just simply running shell would open the shell in an interactive mode. And then if, let's say, you just want to run a single script, what you need to do is simply passing on the file name, where I would just do shell, and then the file name, which in this case, let's say, would be arithmetic. And then what is arithmetic? That's essentially just an echo file that prints 2 to the power of 3. So you can just simply run any bash script that you want as well, on either Windows, Linux, or Mac OS, as it's cross-platform. So you actually get to have access to Bash very easily on Windows as well, which I think is something that at least I was hoping for. And then, so essentially, let's say just dive more into the details of how shell is written. Obviously, the first shell would be to implement the parser and see how that works. So for shell, we are currently using pest, which is a parser that supports well, essentially this type of grammar. It's written in Rust, and then we sort of added we're using pest essentially for shell. To give you a bit more details, well, we wrote a grammar which would be based off of some experiments that we had, and then a bit on like how the whole Bash's grammar is written. So I took a bit of idea from that side, and then sort of just work around and see how we can implement this grammar to make sure that it works. Let's say if you want to see the grammar for a specific command that you want to run, or a specific script after it's being parsed, you simply need to run shell with the -d flag, and then as you see, you will be able to see the essentially the ASD, or the parsed tree for the specific command, which in this case would be echo, and then we have the arithmetic expression 2 to the power of 3. And then just to move on from the parser, we, as Julian mentioned, so we started off with Dino task shell, which already implemented some of the commands, but in their case, they were using a different parser, so we had to switch to pest and for the parser, and then also we added Miet support to pest, which you should be able to realize in shell right now. If let's say I just do code that would fail. Mm, I'm not sure why is this slow.
If you close it one per many parser, like
Sorry, what?
if you add like 3 closing instead of
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why it's regardless. Yeah, that is my terminal telling me that it's incorrect. Let's say just another command would be, yeah, okay, I can run like one of the scripts. Let's say if we have this guy here. So as you can see, you have Miet sort of error printing for the parser in shell. That was interesting. And then, well, just to, that would be sort of a brief intro to the parser. But just to move on, we currently support some relatively basic commands, and we are using core utils essentially underneath, which is the same crate that Nushell uses as well. So if just want to share core utils, it would be, so essentially, I guess this would be the repo. Open up
I
core
think you have to
utils.
search for UU2.
Yeah, utils. Okay. So this is essentially what we are using underneath. And then right now, currently we support date, set, touch, you name which, as you can see, some basic commands. And then also on the Dino task shell side, they already have some things written, which is also using the utils, core utils repo. We already have support for those, but essentially one of the plans for shell was to create like an extension to core utils and then support commands like, let's say if you want to download a specific thing and you just don't want to use curl or like things we can install. For that case, we can just write a dl command to download a specific file that you're looking for. So that was like one thing that we had in mind. Apart from that was another command similar to open on Mac OS, or I'm not sure, I don't recall what it was on Linux, but that one as well. So like, what if we had essentially a command that would work on all platforms that would just open like a specific directory? And then, so I think I went over like the commands that we are supporting, and then yeah, and then these are like the shell side, and then these were essentially implemented to a certain level by Dina Task Shell. So we're using those. Just okay.
Share
So
how hard it would
essentially,
be to implement some of these
sorry, what?
commands? Could you show how hard it would be to implement some of these commands?
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, I was just working on, let's say, touch, the simple touch command. Essentially, we I wanted to use like I actually do remember this implementing it. I wanted to use utils, but because their crate is not essentially it's not implemented or created in a way that would work well with pipelines and output pipelines. So we had to like rewrite a bit of what they have already written in terms of like how the command runs. So usually, like in general, the way they work, all of the commands implement a shell command trait, then you would be able to sort of have that function execute for the specific command that you are creating, and then we have a shell command context which you can pass in case you want to add any new command supports, which contains the shell state and then the pipelines, CDR pipeline, CDN pipeline, and then CD out pipeline. And then essentially you will have to parse the arguments that are being passed from shell command context as well. So you would have the arguments, and then we usually, or like we always parse those arguments here, and then see, well, different types of arguments. Each command might have different types of arguments. Like for example, in this case, for set, we currently support -e and -x, which is print on trace and exit on error. And then we have to essentially have we have like a general function which parses the argument kinds, whether they're long, essentially they're short flag, they're long flag, whether we have a plus flag which was added for the purpose of set, or if there's any other type essentially. And then I just use that to sort of find out what are the changes or what are the commands that need to be implemented in this case, and then we just have the shell command trait always implemented for any of the commands. So it's as easy as that is, essentially to add a new command, but this is like a example. So if core utils doesn't support anything, we'll have to write everything from scratch. And then as I was saying, we are planning to add a couple commands to the core utils repo, or essentially create like a core utils extension, which would be one I went over was essentially download, the other one is open, and then a couple of them more. And then that sort of I think wraps up the technicalities of shell. Let me know if does anyone have any questions? Perfect.
Great. no more questions from the community, I would like to ask some more. So, is there any more plans for you to continue on this right now? Because I know you're also working on some other stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I was essentially one of the necessities that we need to have are some commands, obviously. So we aren't currently supporting four. That is something that should be done. So I'm just continuously adding um, some commands to the shell, and also I was essentially planning to refactor a bit of some things that because I guess I started 4 months ago on working on shell, and since then I have gotten to learn a lot about the architecture in general. So I would like to sort of improve on those a bit, whether how the testing is done, etc. So I wanted to work on that a bit, and then essentially add the commands that are necessary, like for, like while, and so on. And then there was a quick discussion on whether we can add support for shell through WASM. And then that is something that sounds very interesting. So I would like to have the chance to work on that as well. I think that would be amazing. But there's like a bit of technicalities involved in terms of how well the pipeline is gonna work. Because we might have to essentially write something from scratch in order to match the pipelines that we're using for shell, like the input, output, and CDR sender pipeline to the ones that the browser offers through WASM. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that would do it.
Perfect, perfect.
Any last
Um,
questions?
yeah,
If not, then I could maybe add a little bit to what Julian already was saying, but after seeing this, you might understand some of it a little better. So what you just saw in the code that we use Tinu Task Shell. Tinu Task Shell is currently the Pixie Run shell. So if you do Pixie Run, you activate a Dino Task Shell in your terminal, and that also limits the amount of things you can do with Pixie tasks. So you can actually only do echoes and everything that's in this list that Parsa is showing. With the ability to, in the future, switch to shell, we can indeed have if statements and possibly while and for as soon as they are implemented, but also use all the core utils, which is very interesting because then you can have a much better similarity to Windows and Mac and Linux when you're using Pixie run tasks, and don't have to avoid Pixie run and move to yeah, another command that you don't have yet. So that's where this is becoming very powerful for the rest of the development within the prefix ecosystem. So if there's any questions on that, ask away. And otherwise, very much thank you, Parsa, for presenting this, and I
of
think it's a
course,
really cool project.
of course.
I hope we can
It
see
most
some more.
certainly is. I hope. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
Looking forward to try it out in Pixie and see if we can benefit from it already. But
Oh, undoubtedly. I hope I can add. I actually might work on adding if support on the weekend. So we'll see, and then hopefully if we have if sorry for support, we already have if implemented, so that's perfectly fine. Yeah, don't worry about that. But for we have like some of the arithmetic operations already implemented. And then that might be just an easy change. So I might work on that a bit, but we'll see. Hopefully we can integrate it into Fixes soon, and then yeah,
that
and have
that
fun.
said, a question for the community. I see Trevzero and Dave being here. Sorry, Silvio. Um, what would be the size of increase that you would accept for the Pixie binary for something like this? Like, does that make sense to you, or would you say that nah, that can never happen, an increase in size?
And an increase in the size. Um, can you clarify, like, what do you mean,
Yeah, so
in
currently
terms of like,
Pixie is like 30-ish megabytes depending on the platform.
Yeah.
Would that, like, I imagine it changing a little bit because it's more than just Dino Task Shell. But how bad would that be for a tool like Pixie?
If let's say if you're comparing, I guess, Shell to how Dino Task Shell was written, Dino Task Shell was using, let's say, a different parser, which in my opinion, Pest is much simpler, hence resulting in a lesser, I guess, in a lesser size. And then I believe I would say so. The question was whether essentially this will cause Pixie to have an increase in size, or
Hmm.
is that correct? Okay. This we obviously try to be as minimal as we can. So like that goes without a doubt. And then we are using, let's say in the example of touch that I showed you. So we right now had to add like all of those essentially all of the underlying things that core utils already supports, because it's simply the pipeline is different, right? So, but the plan is to sort of add all of those features onto core utils and then hopefully move commands onto that side because that's what Nushell is doing right now at the moment. So like they have that sort of integration already implemented. So we have that plan as well, and hopefully we can reduce that.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, I'm curious how that's gonna evolve.
Indeed, yeah, we have to see like how how our pipeline will be integrable with what they're offering because they're just like it's simple prints and you know.
Okay. Yeah, great. Then I think we can call it quits for today and see everyone next time.